How are we doing, guys? This is Mr. Striz, and this is for our midterm review here. I know it's kind of different than our usual videos, but we'll start off with that nature of science. First, we got to talk about scientific theories. So remember, scientific theories explain. So they explain an observation that has been developed to explain a wide variety of events. So we talked about, the theory of evolution, something like that, where the theories are used to explain an observation. The keyword is explain there. But then we talk about scientific laws as well. Remember, laws describe a certain observation that has been proven to occur. So remember that keyword there for laws is they describes. So the key difference there, remember, theories explains where law describes, and laws have been proven to occur. So like the law of gravity, we know gravity exists because it's a scientific law there. And this kind of hint there right there real quick. Remember that theories cannot become laws or vice versa, as theories are used to explain how or why, while laws describe what happens. So I know, laws are proven where theories are not proven to occur, but don't think of it in the sense that a theory can eventually become a law, because remember, a theory cannot become a law there. And then as we move on down to peer review, remember, peer review is important because that's where scientists share their findings to ensure information is trustworthy and accurate. So you want scientists to look over someone else's work, do the experiment all over again, make sure it's actually true what they found out, because someone can easily just lie and say, I have proof to cure cancer, and then who knows that whatever they developed to cure cancer actually might cause more cancer. So that's why peer review is so important. Now, moving on to the next part there. We talked about our variables. We talked about scientific method, doing experiments and everything. Remember that independent variable is a variable that is changed by the scientist. And I made a keynote there that it's found on the x-axis. So remember that independent variable is what you change, and it's found on the x-axis. The dependent variable, instead, though, is a variable that is measured. So that's the variable you're looking at to see what actually occurs in the experiment. And remember that keynote, it's found on the y-axis. Remember control group, the group that is held constant and does not change. So that control group does not receive that change there, that the independent variable that group does receive. And just kind of key reminder there at the bottom of the scientific method, remember, it's ask a question, do background research, hypothesis. Remember, hypothesis is just an educated guess. Do an experiment, analyze data, and draw a conclusion, and report your results. So that sums up basically the nature of science, what you guys need to know on that midterm there. Next, we're going to be talking about microscopes. So microscopes, we talked about 4 different microscopes: that compound light, the scanning electron microscope, the dissecting microscope, and the transmission electron microscope. Remember that compound light microscope is the type of microscopes that majority of us have here in the science rooms that we usually use. That's 400 to 1,000 times magnification. And remember, you're there to see human/animal cells, bacteria. The scanning electron microscope, 10 to 50,000 magnification, viruses, organelles. Remember, scanning that key thing there, 3D images. Remember, scanning, you can see 3D. Dissecting microscope, it's less than 100 times, tissues and organs. Transmission electron microscope, that's 10,000 to 100,000 magnification, and that you can see with organelles and microorganisms. So remember, once again, though, that scanning electron microscope is the only one that you can see in 3D image. Finally, we're moving on to water and the carbon cycle. All right, properties of water. Remember, water is a polar molecule with 2 hydrogen, 1 oxygen, H2O. And it's a polar molecule because that oxygen is a negative charge and pulls the positive hydrogen molecules towards it. So you get the negative on the hydrogen, and it pulls those positive hydrogen towards it. That's why it's a polar molecule. Now, those also form hydrogen bonds because of the attraction between the positive and negative oxygen. So those hydrogen bonds are just bonds where you have a positive charge attracted to a negative charge there. Once again, with that negative oxygen attracting the 2 positive hydrogens. And then we also talked about the properties of water themselves. Remember, the properties of water is cohesion. That's water sticking to water molecules. Adhesion is water sticking to any other substance besides water. High heat capacity, water takes more energy to actually heat up. That's why it takes a little bit to boil water, because it takes a lot of energy to heat it up. Or that's why, our temperature is so, in Florida, it doesn't range from 15 degrees to 95 degrees. We're surrounded by water, and that water, in the oceans stores that heat there. Expansion upon freezing, remember that water expands during freezing. And that key thing, remember that's why ice floats on a frozen pond, is because that expansion upon freezing. And then that last one there, we talked about the universal solvent. Water breaks apart or dissolves more substance than any other liquids, like we talked about with sugar and water. Remember, a lot of that is because these properties is because of water being a polar molecule and having those hydrogen bonds there, forming that hydrogen bond. Now, the water and carbon cycle. So I kind of gave, it's not a great drawing of the water cycle here, but remember precipitation. Precipitation, that's rain, snow, hail, or sleet. That's just when liquid water falls back down to Earth. From there, it can go out to runoff. Runoff, remember, is that flow of water off Earth's surfaces. From runoff, it can go different places. It can go with groundwater. That's where water is held underground in soil or rocks. It can go into the lakes. We got lakes here. Remember, liquid water turning into gas, that's evaporation. So liquid water turning to gas is evaporation. But remember, evaporation off of plants is transpiration. So transpiration is water evaporating from the plants. Condensation is water going from gas to liquid. That's how clouds are formed, is through that condensation there. So that's a quick review there on the water cycle. The carbon cycle, I didn't really draw it just because there's so many forms where carbon cycle can actually take place in. And I gave you a couple examples here with photosynthesis. Remember, plants take in CO2, respiration, then breathing out carbon dioxide, fossil fuels being released into the air, or even dead organisms decaying. So those are four main sources of carbon being transferred along the Earth's biosphere through that. So that sums up our midterm review video for that first one. This is Mr. signing out.